Hello friends and welcome to the aTech channel. Today we put together another very special video for you. We're going to transport you to China. But first, did you know that the way we design our cities has a huge impact on the quality and surrounding ecosystem? For example, replacing soil and vegetation with mineral pavement changes the composition of the soil. In addition to increasing the risk of water overload, this has threatened the quality of waterways. This waterproofing prevents rainwater from penetrating the soil, and consequently, the consumption of water by the plants. The water cannot be evacuated normally by the ground and the plants, so it accumulates on the surface. As a result, it mixes with urban pollutants such as fuel, waste, and other chemicals. The loss of vegetation in cities is also a factor that affects air quality. With climate change, our cities are particularly vulnerable to flooding and heat waves. This has a major impact on the well-being and the health of the population. So what would be a solution to all of this? As said earlier, we'll take a look at what happened in China to answer this. Don't move. Did you know that this country today is what is called a sponge city? According to him, this is his strategy to fight against climate change. It was during the last assembly on global warming that Xi Jinping, the president of the People's Republic of China, announced his big surprise. China now has the ambition to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. According to local authorities, the country plans to reach carbon neutrality by 2060. A gesture welcomed by the rest of the world, especially since more than 1/4 of the CO2 emissions in the atmosphere come from this country. But what explains this sudden turnaround? Especially since China and the United States have been a bit reticent on the policies advancing in the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. To know the answers, we need to review the reality of the effects to climate change in this country. In a few years, China's gone from being an agrarian country to the most industrialized country in the world. It now occupies an important place in the world economy, behind the big factories and big cities with skyscrapers as far as the eye can see. However, lies a terrible truth. In fact, this rapid industrialization has caused an artificialization of its soil. This with a widespread phenomenon in many urban cities around the world. Artificialization occurs when the natural water cycle is disrupted. This limits the drainage of the water in the area concerned. The latter is thus at risk for succumbing to the flooding. This is one of the direct consequences of climate change. With alternating periods of drought and heavy rainfall, rainwater can no longer reach its natural destination such as the water label. For those reasons, China has thought of an innovation to fight against urban flooding. It is the implementation of a sponge city. But before focusing on this one, we must see the relationship between floods and global warming. Floods are phenomena that exist for a long time, but in recent years, they have caused havoc in many countries, including China. Indeed, climatologists have shown that global warming has increased the amount of rain that falls in the day by more than 15%. This sounds insignificant, but the consequences are serious. This is especially true for cities that have difficulty draining water. These studies also carry around the rainfall in Germany. For China, the last flood caused by heavy rains occurred in 2021. With a heavy toll of 33 deaths and more than 200,000 inhabitants evacuated. The Chinese authorities believe that the Sponge City project should be implemented as soon as possible. In fact, the flood caused by torrential rains, the quality of which corresponds to almost a year's rainfall. In addition, the city does not have an efficient drainage system to handle the water. All these reasons have pushed Chinese leaders to change their position and choose the path of redirecting greenhouse gas emissions. One of the answers to protect the population, such as floods, and ensure the proper management of rainwater is in this strategy. The concept of sponge city is not new. Many cities in Europe, which are plagued by heavy rainfall and flooding, are already using it. Dutch cities are already using this method, but also some regions that are at high risk to flooding due to their unique geological location. But the method became famous with the decision of China to apply it to its cities at the risk of flooding. Implementing such a system in a country as vast as the latter is a real challenge that falls under Titanic projects. Launched in 2014, the Sponge City aims to improve the rainwater absorption capacity of Chinese urban cities. The goal is to achieve the result of more than 80% in 2030. The objective is to adapt this phenomenon caused by global warming, but also have a water in stock during dry periods. But how to archive this concept? To put it simply, the Sponge City makes a city permeable to water. The concept consists of creating spaces that can absorb a significant amount of water. However, these developments have already been considered unsuitable for some cities. And since then, city planners have completely changed their methods. They've installed green roofs, lakes, and parks. All these places allow to absorb the rains that fall. The goal of such system is to reduce the amount of water that goes through the city's traditional networks. In China, many cities like Jinhao are already using this system, but the sponge city concept does not only solve flooding problems. In fact, the problems related to water supply in large cities are also solved. Many countries in the world are unable to meet the water needs of their population. By building a sponge city, the Chinese authorities hope to collect a huge amount of water to be used in the case of a drought. However, given the size of China, this solution is still far from reaching its objectives. To help cities to implement it, experimental cities have been chosen before popularizing it into the whole province. China is also aiming for water autonomy for all territories that decide to become a sponge city, but this system is considered by many people as a way to limit the effects of global warming. Many wonder if the problem should not rather be treated at its source, that is to say, at the emission of greenhouse gases itself. In the meantime, a study was conducted in 2019 by the World Renaissance Institute, which is an international research organization. This institution looked at countries with chronic water storages and estimated that 17 countries are extremely high water stress situation. That's it. They consume an average 80% of their available water resources each year. The Middle East and North Africa region, for example, is among the most exposed to water stress. This is largely due to the predominant drought of these regions. At the same time, there are other cities suffering from severe flooding almost every year. Do you think the sponge city system will be a viable solution for them? Tell us what you think in the comments. That's it, everyone. Our video is already coming to an end. If you liked it, don't hesitate to share it, and don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification bell so you don't miss any of our next videos. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. By the way, a little blue thumbs up from you will make us really happy too. See you soon on aTech.